The cheering news of the release of the near 300 students of the Girls Science Secondary School, Jangebe, Talata Mafara local government area of Zamfara State has brought closer home the need for a rejigging of the nation's security forewarning mechanism, beginning with the citizens. The need to also create viable opportunities for youth employment has also resonated in these times when the lines between outlawry and sheer opportunism are getting blurred. Also on Political Update today, we will look at the issue of food security and the threats of insecurity and climate change. I'm Fisayo Ogunfui. Welcome. President Muhammadu Buhari has urged Nigerians to go about their lawful businesses as the country's unity is not negotiable. The president stated this at an audience to Governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello.
Governor Yahaya Bello, accompanied by the Chief of Staff to the President, Professor Ibrahim Gambari, was in the State House to formally brief the President on the suspension of strike and blockade of food and cattle supply to the southern part of Nigeria by the Amalgamated Union of Food and Cattle Dealers of Nigeria. Governor Bello had, on the mandate of the President, engaged those that matter and amicably resolved the crisis in the interest of the nation. Discussions with the President centered on the commitments extracted from both parties, demands made, and indeed the best way forward.
And Mr. President is very happy with the speed with which we resolve the matter. We are all aware that Mr. President, as a father, is so committed to the peace, security, and well-being of Nigerians, irrespective of your tribe, religion, or where you come from. Mr. President expressed his appreciation to all those who ensure that the impasse is resolved amicably.
President Buhari and the Kogi State Governor also analyzed the nation's security situation, expressing optimism that with the new measures put in place, Nigerians will soon heave a sigh of relief.
As the Commander-in-Chief, he has assured each and every one of us that Nigeria is going to be secured, it's going to be safe, it's going to be prosperous. And I believe in him 100%. He urged each and every one of us to continue to go about our lawful businesses in the country, that Nigeria's unity is unnegotiable. Nigeria must be united, Nigeria must be peaceful, and Nigeria must be prosperous.
Governor Yahaya Bello, who maintains a contrary view on COVID-19, however, said he believes in vaccines.
Governors of the northeast region of the country have suggested a review of the federal government's de-radicalization program for repentant Boko Haram terrorists for better efficiency. The governors advanced these thoughts at the end of their fourth regional meeting held in Bauchi. They also agreed to come up with a joint task force on schools security.
The forum, in its resolutions and recommendations, appreciate the reinforcement efforts of the federal government in the fight against insurgency and other forms of criminalities in the region and call for the establishment of community policing and sub-regional security outfits to complement the effort of the military and other federal security agencies in addressing all security challenges. The forum also noted with dismay that despite the importance of the Mambila hydropower project to Nigeria and the northeast sub-region, it only exists on paper and therefore call on the federal government to accord the project the desired seriousness due to its anticipated impact.
Attorney Generals of our respective states have met and they have poured their recommendations to the forum with a view to dealing with some aspects, especially on the issue of de-radicalization of ex-members of Boko Haram.
On education, the forum observed that an aggressive approach is required to reposition education in the region, therefore agreed to form the Northeast Council on Education.
The mandate to improve quality and performance of students, set up peer review and collect data to drive decision-making on education.
After a meeting with the British High Commissioner in Nigeria, the forum resolved to work with the UK government in all areas that will be of benefit to the region without compromising the sovereignty of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
And we must have the honesty and sincerity to say that we are not living up to the expectations of those who brought us to power. That we are conscious and that we are saying it means that we are taking strenuous measures.
Moving on now, INEC says lack of access to polling units is a major challenge facing the electoral process in Nigeria. Chairman of the Commission, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, shared his thoughts during a session with the Senate Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters on how best to give Nigerians more access to vote.
Inadequacy of polling units created since 1999, according to INEC, has continued to create a crisis of access to vote among Nigerians, with many negative impacts.
The National Assembly should know that the Commission is making efforts to build a national consensus to solve the crisis, learning from previous unsuccessful attempts. And then we want the National Assembly to support the Commission to convert existing voting points to polling units and to relocate some of them to underserved areas.
The leadership of the National Assembly expressed readiness to support the Commission to deliver on its mandate.
We are going to be up and doing. We'll make sure we provide for INEC those resources that will make you perform your work wonderfully well.
To design and adopt a decision-making model that builds confidence and gives people the confidence to accept that this process is not designed to benefit one group.
INEC promised to continue its engagements with critical stakeholders until adequate access is created for all Nigerians to vote.
And to our topic of the day, ensuring food security, creating jobs, reducing criminality, all sound like political talk at times. However, these key elements are intricately woven in ensuring a society on a steady trajectory of progress. What are the hurdles? Honorable Simon Nwigbo of Ikwano, Aba North and South Federal Constituency of Abia State joins us again today. I'm happy to bring you back. Thank you very much for coming. We didn't have quite a long conversation, of course, due to the circumstances last week. But why when we came, it was of apprehension because at that time the little girls had been, seized by the kidnappers. Now, at least we can start the program on a note of happiness and relief after the release of the girls. What are your comments on that first before we go on?
Before my comments, thank you very much for having me. I represent Ikwano, Umuahia North, yes, Umuahia South.
Yes.
Not Aba.
Right.
Everyone is happy. We're all relieved. And we pray that it doesn't happen again. Because whenever a person is taken in a nation, it's enough to disturb the entire nation. That's when you begin to know that we value life. So for these kids to have been released, we just want to thank God and then thank the government for being able to get this done. But we pray that it doesn't happen again.
All right, moving on now. You weaved some, intricate web between, the vagaries of nature and some of the needs that we've seen in the past years in terms of climate, in terms of the, what we need to do, even to the point of job creation. Let's start from, your bill and what, necessitated you putting everything in a scenario.
Well, thank you very much. The climate change bill, which I sponsored in the 8th Assembly and then re-sponsored it now, is a bill that is intended, in fact, it aims to create a legal framework for mainstreaming climate change into government policy formulation and implementation at that level, at the national level. So that's essentially, in summary, what the bill sets out to achieve. But it also further aims to provide a legal cover, because so far people are engaging in climate change activities, but there's no national act on that. So that's why that bill is there. And besides, we seem to be talking about climate change from some kind of distance or without some seriousness. I remember very clearly that Mr. President put this in his inaugural address. But long before then, there had been some efforts. But we need to clearly define how we want to approach this, because we know that it's a major challenge today, both in Nigeria and globally. So this is why it is important, and this is why the global and national conversation must continue to be able to find solutions, to be able to find ways and means of addressing the obvious challenges that come from climate change.
All right. If we're going to situate it in terms of our own local challenges, where would you start?
Almost everywhere, because for those of us who are this age now, we've seen a lot of things change. I remember that when I was attending school at Omudike in those days, in the 70s, cattle were brought to the east, to the west, through the rail line. And before they got to these destinations, some of them were well fed, whether they were coming from Maiduguri. By then, Lake Chad was doing very well, grazing areas, green lands, and all that. But today, what you see is desertification, droughts, drying up of Lake Chad. These are clearly the resulting from the impacts of climate change. Consequently, two things are involved. Like you said, they're all integrated. There's no grass for these cattle to graze on. That's one point. Two, there's no rail line to convey the cattle to either to the east or to the west.
They are being rejuvenated at the moment, I guess.
Consequently, no. It's being. I know that. I mean, it started and it's going on very well. I think even the Minister of Transport is going to Port Harcourt, I think on the 11th, to also start something on rail reactivation. But the point is, where are we now? Because we allow these things, serious infrastructural decay, to occur over time. It didn't start with this administration. We no longer have the opportunity where rails safely conveyed cattle to, whether they were coming to Enugu, they will stop there, whether they were coming to Umuahia, they'll stop there, and then whether they were going to Aba or going to Port Harcourt. And from there, the headers will take them through the third road, mainly at night, down to the next location. No rail line, no area to graze. And no area to graze was caused by climate change. Consequently, you see people now looking for a way to survive. You now begin to experience forced migration. And when you migrate from your place about to a new place, the place where you're going to, there are already people there. The resultant effect is a clash. So this is just the way. So, and then if you come to the riverine areas, last time I went to around Ogoni, a little beyond, you discover that areas where people used to keep their canoes for fishing have been completely wiped out by coastal erosion. Are you now talking about the gully erosions within the southeast? They were not that way when we were growing up. So clearly, you have evidence, numerous pieces of evidence of the impact, the negative impact of climate change all over the place. And they are affecting both agriculture, fishing for, like I've cited the example of the areas within Ogoni and some other riverine areas, and animal husbandry generally. So the distortion is whole, and they must be addressed.
You have made the statement of the problem very quickly. Solutions.
Solution is one. We have come up, we're working on the bill, and the bill is receiving the kind of collaborative and coordinated attention, between the executive and the legislature to ensure that whatever gray areas that led to the bill suffering a setback by being denied assent does not appear, so that we have things to guide and things to look out for, and that actions and activities in tackling the devastating effects of climate change are going to be very well coordinated, and then you can measure what you are doing. That's one. Two, from the angle of agriculture, I think the government is doing very well. So the solution is that we are going to work very hard to stop those things that are disrupting the activities of the farmers and creating problems for food production and food safety.
All right, before we come back for the home run, let's take a few reports. Deputy Speaker of the Ogun State House of Assembly, Dare Kadri Oluwatimileyin, was impeached by his colleagues over the week over allegations of misconduct.
The impeachment process was sequel to the outcome of a report by the ad hoc committee earlier set up by the Assembly to investigate the allegation of misconduct leveled against the Deputy Speaker, which found him culpable. After the presentation of the report by the committee chairman and majority leader, Honorable Yusuf Sherif, a member representing Ijebu North East, Abayomi Fasua, moved the motion for the impeachment, which was seconded and subsequently supported by 19 lawmakers, including the Speaker of the House, Honorable Lakunle Oluomo.
In line with the rule of the House, that if the motion is supported by a two-thirds majority of members, the officer in person remain removed. I hereby pronounce, based on this, that Honorable Dare Kadri is removed as the Deputy Speaker of the Ogun State House of Assembly.
The Speaker stated that the Assembly's standing order precluded the removal of a principal officer through a voice note, but rather 19 lawmakers, which form a two-thirds majority, signed the impeachment notice.
Some are saying in the studio just like that. Let's move on. Governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, says host communities should get nothing less than 10% of the proceeds from oil exploration, which should be tied to specific projects for the development of the areas. He made the comments in a meeting with the National Assembly Joint Committees on Petroleum.
While the quest for the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill lingers, stakeholders are saying it is critical to consider the plight of the host communities before its passage. Governor Wike advocates that not less than 10% of the funds should be dedicated to the development of the host communities.
I must make it specific on what the money will be used for. You talk about education, you talk about health. Don't just say 10% to the oil communities. No. It will be tied to specific projects.
Leader of the delegation, Victor Nwokolo, says the committee is in the state to address contentious issues in the petroleum industry bill bordering on the host communities.
What we saw today, that a community that is known for fishing as a means of livelihood have been brought to a standstill. The boats were there, over 40, 50 boats lying idle because their water have been fully polluted.
He is hopeful that the interaction with the host communities will translate to ascertaining the impact of oil exploration in these communities.
All right, some members there just also going along the lines of some of the interventions you've made on the program already. But let's move to the final leg of the discussion, and that is, the challenges we've been faced with, and that is the issue of a teeming number, a big number of teeming youths in the country, and, finding a means of livelihood because of the old adage about idle hands and the devil's workshop. What do we begin to do? What are the efforts to be made, and in what direction should we be looking at to get the youth engaged?
Well, thank you very much. There's not even going to be one particular direction. It's going to be an all-encompassing approach, to be able to get the youths engaged, given the number of youths who are unemployed right now. First is for a deliberate government policy towards creating employment. Of course, you can see that part of what this government has done so far is to see how the youths and the women are carried along. That is going on, it's working, but I think we'll continue along that line. Secondly, we have to actually get the youths to engage in, we have to support them, provide funding for them to engage in mechanized agriculture, because today it's difficult for some of the youths who have been living in cities to go back to the rural areas and start. But when they see the prospects of the kind of success they are likely to register, particularly once they have funding. I am very convinced that they will join. But more than that, we should also look at the possibility of creating a kind of social safety net. Because apart from having employment, you discover that part of the reason why people feel a little bit hopeless is because there's no social safety net for them. They don't look up to get even maybe 20,000, 30,000 coming from the government. So as these policies are being put together and being developed, there's every chance that we'll be able to do that. But let me also mention that there's a deliberate government policy, like we are talking about the Great Green Wall, where we are tackling the rampaging effects of climate change, by reclaiming degraded areas. But at the same time, government has created over 1,960-something jobs in those areas. So if we come in a coordinated manner, handling agriculture, tackling the issues of climate change and using that to create employment, and then setting up some kind of safety nets, I'm sure that the youth will be busy and we have less of the problems that we're experiencing right now.
In terms of your own locality, Umaya, North and South, what are the expectations there, especially in terms of your interactions with the youths, their hopes and aspirations?
Thank you for the question. Within my federal constituency, we actually say almost a completely developed environment because it's within the state capital. The youths expect employment. But there's something I just found out with the last empowerment that I did. When I did empowerment with the Ministry of Agriculture, bringing mechanized cage, giving them, bears at the point of lay, and providing them money with which to start that, the thing caught like a wildfire. People were happy and they were looking forward to more because they found that, look, now you can get egg, you also have the bed, and you are busy doing this. It's not just a one-off cash. So this way, I just discovered is something that perhaps by the grace of God, if I find the resources, I would like to do more of that because the youth truly want to be getting.
He is fed and is also busy.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much for being a part of the program. That has been Political Update for today. We've had Honorable Sam Aonuibu as well. Of course, he was here last Friday. And just like I shared with him, when you came, it was apprehension last week. This week, at least, we have some good news, especially from Zamfara. That has been the program for today. Thank you for being a part of the Nigerian Television Authority and being a part of the program. Keep on watching programs from the NTA, Africa's finest and largest, where we give you the very best of news, reviews, previews, and interviews. Bye-bye now.